Myra stepped off the shuttle and looked around. The air on Virelin was warm and sweet, filled with the scent of glowing flowers that bloomed even under the soft light of the twin moons. She took a deep breath. This was not Earth, but it was beautiful in its own strange way. The Peace Summit was in full swing. Delegates from many worlds had come together to talk about cooperation and friendship. Humanity was new to this galactic gathering. Some species found humans curious, others found them loud or strange. But Myra was proud humanity had a gift for connection, for feeling things deeply, and sometimes that was exactly what the galaxy needed. She carried her small bag as she walked toward the center of the summit, where tall tents stood like giant flowers. Their silk walls shimmered in colors no human had, names for colors that changed and danced in the light. The biggest tent, called the Velvet Tent, was where most talks happened. But Myra was drawn to a smaller tent on the edge of the gathering, less busy, quieter. She had heard whispers about the Velvet Tent's places made from the glowing silk of the Virelin moths, woven with care by the local people. They were warm and soft inside, almost like being inside a dream. Today, Myra wanted to see it for herself. The entrance to the small velvet tent hung open. Inside, the silk walls glowed faintly with pink and blue light. The air smelled like jasmine and honey. Myra stepped inside carefully. It was cooler here, peaceful. The sound of the outside crowd was soft and distant. Near the far wall, a figure sat on the floor. Myra stopped. The being was unlike any she had seen before. He was tall and slender, with smooth skin that shimmered faintly silver in the tent's light. His eyes were large and dark, filled with calm. He wore simple clothes, pale and flowing. In his hands was a thin brush, and before him lay a canvas glowing with soft colors. He was painting. Myra's footsteps made no sound on the thick silk floor. She didn't want to disturb him. She watched quietly as the brush moved, painting lines that looked like rivers flowing through stars. After a long moment, he looked up. His eyes met hers. They were steady, calm but also curious. "Hello," Myra said softly. He nodded once and smiled slightly. "You are human?" "Yes," she replied. "I'm Myra. I work with the human delegation." He set the brush down gently and stood, coming closer. "I am Talon," he said. His voice was soft but clear. "I am healer of my people." Myra smiled back. "It's nice to meet you, Talon. This is a beautiful painting." He nodded. "It is the night sky of Virelin. It holds many stories. Like the stories humans tell," Myra said, stepping further into the tent. She noticed how warm and soft everything felt here, like a quiet hug. Talon watched her carefully. "You speak of stories. Your kind is very open with feelings." Myra laughed lightly. "Yes, maybe too open sometimes. We wear our hearts on our sleeves." Talon's eyes held a flicker of something interest, maybe surprise. "We Sarati learn to hold feelings quietly. To feel deeply but not show too much. It helps us stay calm in hard times." Myra thought about that. That sounds very hard. Sometimes it's good to let feelings out. Talon looked down at his hands, then back at Myra. "Perhaps. But there is power in silence too." They stood in quiet for a moment, the only sound the soft hum of the tent's silk walls. "I like the quiet here," Myra said. "It feels safe." "It is safe," Talon agreed. "And warm. The velvet silk holds more than light, it holds peace." Myra's smile grew. "I wish Earth had places like this." Talon reached out slowly and touched the glowing silk near Myra's hand. The fabric felt like a soft breeze against her skin. "This tent will not last forever," he said quietly. "It moves with the moths, traveling to new places." Myra nodded, feeling a sudden ache inside. She didn't want this moment to end. "Maybe I will visit again," she said softly. Talon smiled again. "I will be here." Outside, the sun was setting behind purple mountains. The world was changing colors, but inside the velvet tent, time seemed to slow. Myra felt something she did not expect, a quiet hope, a small warmth growing inside her chest. Before she left, she glanced back at Talon. He was already picking up his brush, ready to return to his quiet work. But his eyes met hers one last time, and in them, Myra saw something new, something that made her heart beat faster. She stepped outside the tent into the soft evening light, already thinking about the next time she would return. The sun rose softly over Virelin, casting a warm golden glow over the shimmering velvet tents. Myra woke early, her mind still filled with the quiet moment she had shared with Talon the day before. She dressed quickly and made her way toward the small tent on the edge of the summit. Her steps were light, careful not to disturb the peaceful morning. When Myra arrived, the tent was empty, but the glowing silk walls shimmered gently in the early light. She stepped inside, letting the calm wash over her again. The air smelled faintly of jasmine, and the soft light made the colors on the floor dance like tiny stars. Suddenly, she heard the soft brush strokes of paint on canvas. Turning, she saw Talon sitting cross-legged on the floor, his long fingers moving carefully over his work. The canvas glowed with a scene of quiet trees under a silver moon. "Good morning," Myra said softly. Talon looked up, his dark eyes meeting hers. "Good morning, Myra." She smiled and sat a little way from him, careful not to get in his space. "You paint beautiful things. Do you always paint alone?" Talon nodded. "Yes. Painting helps me think. It helps me feel." "Feel?" Myra repeated. Humans often talked about feelings like they were colors, bright, loud, and always changing. But here, in the calm of the velvet tent, feelings felt different. Talon looked at her carefully. "Our people believe in quiet knowing. It means understanding without many words. Feeling without loud expression. It is a way to stay calm." Myra thought about that. Humans are different. We wear our feelings on our faces and in our voices. Sometimes it causes trouble. But sometimes it helps people understand each other. Talon's eyes softened. "Your way is brave. It is hard to show so much." Myra felt a small warmth in her chest. "Maybe. But it is real." For a while, the only sounds were the gentle brush strokes and the soft hum of the silk walls. Myra felt peaceful here, near Talon and his quiet strength. After a moment, she reached into her bag and pulled out a small notebook. "Would you like to try?" she asked. Talon raised an eyebrow but nodded. Myra handed him a pencil and opened her notebook to a blank page. Talon held the pencil carefully. His fingers were long and graceful, but unfamiliar with this tool. He drew a few light lines, simple shapes, curves that looked like waves. Myra smiled. "That's good. Now, try to draw something from your heart." Talon closed his eyes. When he opened them, he began to draw slowly, carefully, a small tree with roots that twisted deep into the ground and branches that reached toward the sky. Myra watched, impressed. "That tree, does it mean something?" Talon nodded. "It means strength and patience. It means life that grows quietly, but surely. That's beautiful, Myra said. On Earth, trees are very important too. They remind us to be strong and to keep growing. Talon looked at her with interest. Your people have strong roots. Myra laughed softly. I hope so. They continued like this for a while, Myra teaching Talon simple drawings and words, Talon sharing quiet stories through his art. Sometimes he showed her memories in small glowing images, moments from his life as a healer, the gentle touch of a patient's skin, the soft music of a river under the moon. Myra listened carefully, trying to understand a world so different from her own. She learned that Sarati did not rush. They moved slowly, like the flow of water, and found meaning in quiet moments. Talon watched Myra too. He saw her bright eyes, full of life and warmth, and something inside him began to stir, a feeling he did not yet understand. One afternoon, as the summit grew louder outside the velvet tent, Myra noticed a small scar on Talon's hand. What happened here? She asked gently. Talon looked at his hand and touched the scar with a finger. A long time ago, when I was young, I helped a patient. It was difficult, and I made a mistake. The scar is a reminder to be careful, to learn from pain. Myra reached out and gently touched his hand. We all have scars. They tell our stories. Talon held her hand for a moment, then slowly withdrew it, his cheeks faintly glowing silver. Your kindness is different from anything I have known. Myra smiled. It is human. We try to help, even when it is hard. As the days passed, Myra and Talon met often in the velvet tent. They shared stories, drawings, and moments of quiet understanding. Each visit built a bridge between two very different worlds, one of open hearts and flowing emotions, the other of silent strength and deep knowing. One evening, as the twin moons rose high, Talon showed Myra a new painting, a gentle river winding through a valley of glowing flowers. It is the river of life, he said softly. It never stops moving, but the summit on Virelin continued under the soft glow of the twin moons, but the peaceful gathering was suddenly shaken. News spread quickly. An argument had broken out between two species over a trade disagreement. Voices grew loud, and the hope for calm talks seemed to slip away. Myra was near the center of the main velvet tent when the tension reached its peak. She could feel the nervous energy in the air, a sharp contrast to the quiet calm she had found in the smaller tent with Talon. Her heart quickened. This was a moment when humans could show their true strength, not with weapons or power, but with something deeper. She stepped forward, moving gently through the crowd of angry faces and worried eyes. Myra raised her hands softly, her voice steady but warm. Please, she said simply, let's listen to each other. The room quieted just a little. People turned toward her, curious. Myra didn't speak in long speeches. Instead, she looked at the leaders with honest eyes and spoke from the heart. We are all different, yes. But we share one thing: hope. We want peace. Let us find it together. Slowly, the anger began to fade. Tension turned to quiet questions. Myra felt the energy shift, like a fire cooling into warm embers. After the meeting, Myra stepped outside to breathe. The night air was cool, and the stars above seemed to shine a little brighter. She found herself walking toward the small velvet tent where she had met Talon. Inside, the soft light glowed as always. Talon was there, painting quietly, his brush moving with calm precision. The colors on the canvas formed a swirling fire, red and orange flames that danced on the silk surface. Myra watched him for a moment before speaking. You paint fire, she said softly. Talon looked up, his eyes steady. Fire is dangerous, but it is also life. It can destroy or it can warm. Myra nodded. Like people. We can hurt or we can heal. He smiled faintly. I saw your strength today. You did not use words of anger or blame. You used fire that warms. Myra felt a flush of pride but also something new, shyness. It wasn't easy. I was afraid at first. Talon set his brush down and moved closer. Fear is a quiet fire inside us. It teaches us to be careful, but it can also hold us back. Myra looked at him, feeling a strange connection. Sometimes, fear makes me want to run. But then something else pushes me forward. What pushes you? Talon asked softly. Hope, Myra said without hesitation. Hope for something better. For friendship. For love. Talon's dark eyes held hers. Love is a strange thing to us Sarati. We see it in memories and in art, but we do not always understand it fully. Myra smiled gently. Love is many things. It can be quiet, or loud. It can be a touch, a look, a promise. Talon reached out and touched her hand lightly. The warmth surprised Myra again. It was a small gesture but full of meaning. I want to understand, Talon said quietly. Teach me. Myra felt her heart beat faster. I will try. For the next few days, Myra and Talon spent their time together inside the velvet tent. She showed him how humans expressed feelings through words, songs, and stories. He showed her the art of healing, how to listen without speaking, how to feel the pain and help it ease. One afternoon, a group of children from the summit came to visit. They were curious about the glowing tent and the quiet artist inside. Talon smiled shyly but allowed them to look at his paintings. Myra saw how gently he answered their questions, how his eyes softened as he talked about hope and peace. Watching him, Myra realized that Talon was learning to open his heart, little by little. That evening, as the sky turned deep purple, Myra found a new painting on the canvas, two figures standing close beneath a fire that did not burn, but glowed softly. Talon looked at her with a small smile. This is us. Myra felt a warm glow inside. It is beautiful. It is a promise, Talon said. That even in fire, there can be peace. Myra reached out and took his hand again. And that hope can be stronger than fear. Outside the velvet tent, the stars watched silently. Inside, two very different souls were learning to speak the same language, the language of trust, understanding, and a growing passion that needed no words. Myra knew this was only the beginning. The summit might end soon, but what was starting here felt like something that could last forever. The summit on Virelin was coming to an end, but the days were still full of meaning for Myra. Each morning, she found herself drawn to the small velvet tent, where Talon waited quietly with his paints and soft eyes. One morning, dark clouds gathered over the purple mountains surrounding the summit. The twin moons hid behind thick gray skies. A gentle rain began to fall, soft and warm, like the world was breathing slowly. Myra stood outside the velvet tent, watching the raindrops sparkle on the glowing silk. The rain was unusual here. The Sarati people believed that rain was too open, too loud, too much for their careful senses. It was something they avoided. Talon stepped out from the tent, his pale clothes catching the raindrops like silver stars. Myra smiled. Do you want to walk with me? She asked gently. Talon hesitated. Rain is difficult for us, he said quietly. It makes the world too bright. Too much feeling. Myra nodded. I understand. But sometimes, feeling too much can be good. It helps us remember we are alive. After a moment, Talon nodded slowly. Then I will walk with you. Together, they stepped into the rain. The soft drops touched Myra's skin like tiny kisses. She lifted her face to the sky, laughing softly as the rain soaked her hair and clothes. Talon was quieter, but Myra saw his eyes widen at the sensation. He did not laugh, but there was a new light in his gaze. They walked slowly through the wet grass, the rain wrapping around them like a gentle song. Myra talked softly about Earth's rain, how it brought life to plants and animals, how it was a symbol of new beginnings and hope. Talon listened carefully, his face thoughtful. After a while, Myra stopped beside a small stream, where rainwater gathered and moved slowly over shining stones. Look, she said. Even the river sings in the rain. Talon knelt and touched the water gently. It was cold but alive. On Virelin, water is sacred, he said. But rain is different. It makes us feel too much. Myra reached out and took his hand in hers. The warmth of her skin was a surprise to Talon. Maybe feeling too much is not a weakness, she said. Maybe it is a kind of strength. Talon looked at her hand, then met her eyes. For the first time, he smiled fully, soft and true. They sat together by the stream, the rain falling softly around them, and talked of first loves and quiet hopes. Myra told stories of Earth's rain festivals, celebrations of life and renewal. Talon shared memories of his childhood, of healing hands and silent lessons. At one point, Talon reached out, his fingers almost touching Myra's hand. He hesitated, then withdrew. Myra's heart beat faster. She did not pull away. It is strange, Talon said softly, how your touch feels like warmth and light. It is human, Myra said gently. We reach out when we care. Talon's eyes held hers for a long moment. I want to learn this, to reach out. To show care. Myra smiled warmly. I will teach you. As the rain slowed and the clouds began to break, a soft golden light spilled over the hills. The world seemed fresh and new. Together, they stood and walked back to the velvet tent, their clothes wet but their spirits brighter. Inside the tent, the glowing silk was soft and warm against the cool air. Talon took Myra's hand again, this time holding it steadily. Thank you, he said quietly. For the rain. For the warmth. Myra squeezed his hand. Thank you for walking with me. That night, as the moons rose high, Myra lay awake thinking about the rain and the quiet bond growing between them. She felt a new hope, a promise that even the most different hearts could find a way to connect. And somewhere deep inside, Talon felt the same, the stirrings of a passion that was gentle, patient, and waiting to grow. The days on Virelin passed quietly, but Myra's thoughts often returned to Talon and the small velvet tent where their friendship had grown. The summit was nearly over, and soon she would have to return to Earth. The thought made her chest tighten. One morning, Myra arrived at the tent to find Talon waiting for her. His eyes held a soft light, and in his hands was a small, glowing object wrapped in silk. I have something for you, Talon said quietly, offering the bundle. Myra took it carefully, her fingers brushing against his. The silk was warm, almost alive. What is it? She asked, curious. Talon smiled gently. It is a gift from my people, a light made from the silk of the Virelin moth. It holds warmth and hope. It is given to those we trust. Myra's eyes shone. It is beautiful. Talon nodded. I want you to have it, so you remember this place, and the quiet strength we share. Myra unwrapped the silk slowly. Inside was a small orb that glowed softly with pink and blue light. It pulsed gently, like a heartbeat. "It feels alive," she whispered. "It is," Talon said. "A part of Virelin's spirit. It will warm your home, even far away." Myra held the orb close to her heart. "Thank you, Talon. This means more than I can say." Talon's cheeks flushed faintly silver. "I am glad." For a long moment, they simply looked at each other, the glowing orb between them casting soft shadows on their faces. Outside, the wind whispered through the silk walls, carrying the scent of flowers and rain. Myra suddenly felt the weight of the coming goodbye. "How will I say goodbye?" she asked softly. Talon's gaze was steady. "With truth." Myra smiled sadly. "Then I will tell you this time with you has changed me." Talon reached out and took her hand gently. "And me. I have learned to feel new things." The warmth of his touch spread through Myra like the light of the orb. She felt a quiet courage rise inside her. "Promise me," she said, "that we will find each other again." Talon nodded. "I promise." They spent the day in the velvet tent, sharing stories and dreams under the soft glow of the orb. Myra showed Talon images of Earth on her small device: green forests, blue oceans, wide skies. Talon told her about the Sarati home, the quiet mountains, the calm rivers, the endless stars. As the summit drew to a close, the crowds began to leave. Myra and Talon stayed behind, holding the moment still. That evening, the sky was clear and full of stars. Myra and Talon stood outside the velvet tent, the glowing orb between them. "Will you teach me more?" Talon asked softly. "About your people, your feelings." "I will," Myra said. "And you will teach me the silence of your world." Talon smiled. "Together, we will learn." They stood close, hands still joined, sharing a quiet understanding. Myra's heart felt full not just with friendship, but with something deeper. She didn't know what the future held, but she was ready to face it with Talon. The night wrapped around them like the velvet silk, holding their secret safe. As Myra looked up at the stars, she knew that no matter how far they were, the light between them would never fade. The final day of the summit had arrived. The air was filled with soft goodbyes and quiet smiles as delegates from many worlds prepared to leave. Yet, inside the small velvet tent, Myra and Talon remained, caught in a moment that felt both heavy and light. The glowing orb from Virelin's silk moth lay between them, casting a gentle light on their faces. Outside, the murmurs of the summit grew faint as more people drifted away. Myra looked at Talon, noticing the way his eyes seemed brighter, warmer. "I wish time could slow," she said softly. Talon nodded. "The summit will end, but our journey will not." Myra smiled, though her heart ached at the thought of parting. "Do you believe that?" she asked. Talon reached out, his fingers brushing hers. "I do. We have a silent promise." Myra's fingers closed gently over his. "A promise that no matter the distance, we will find each other again." Talon's smile deepened. "Yes." They sat together in the quiet tent, the glow of the orb the only light. Myra thought about all they had shared: the rain, the fire, the slow opening of their hearts. "How do you say goodbye without words?" Talon asked, his voice almost a whisper. Myra took a deep breath. "With a look, a touch, a memory that stays." Talon looked into her eyes and nodded slowly. He lifted her hand and pressed it lightly against his cheek, a silent gesture of connection. Myra's eyes filled with emotion. She did not pull away. Instead, she leaned closer, her forehead resting softly against his. For a moment, the world outside ceased to exist. Then, gently, Talon stood and walked to the entrance of the tent. He looked back once, the soft light reflecting in his eyes. "I will carry this moment with me," he said. "And I will carry you with me," Myra replied. Outside, the summit was ending. Ships were preparing to leave, voices calling farewells. Myra and Talon stepped out together for one last walk beneath the twin moons. The night was cool and still. "I will send messages," Myra said. "Through words, through stories." "And I will send mine," Talon said. "Through art and silence." They paused beneath the sky, the stars shining like promises. "Until we meet again," Myra said. "Until then," Talon replied. They parted with a final, quiet touch, a connection that needed no words. As Myra watched his ship disappear into the stars, she felt a calm certainty. Love, she realized, was not always loud or fast. Sometimes, it was the silent promise of two hearts reaching across the distance. And with that promise, she knew they were never truly apart. Months had passed since the summit on Virelin. Myra stood on the balcony of her home on Earth, watching the stars twinkle above the quiet city. The glowing orb from Talon still rested softly on her table, its gentle light a constant reminder of a place far away and of someone very dear to her heart. Though many days and nights had passed, Myra never forgot the quiet strength of Talon or the peace they had found together in the velvet tent. The world around her felt larger now, filled with new hope and gentle patience. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, Myra's device beeped softly. A message was waiting, a small, glowing image from Virelin. She opened it carefully, and a wave of calm washed over her. It was a simple painting, a river winding gently through a valley, glowing softly under twin moons. Attached was a short message in Talon's quiet words: "The river flows, and so does my heart. Until we meet again." Myra smiled, her fingers trembling slightly. "I will find you," she whispered. That night, she dreamed of the velvet tent, the soft silk walls glowing, the gentle rain falling, the warmth of Talon's hand in hers. Days turned into weeks, and Myra kept sending messages of light, words, and art. Each one was a thread connecting two worlds. Then one day, as she worked in her garden beneath the bright sun, a soft chime came from her device. A new message. This time, it was more than a painting, it was a promise. Talon's image showed two figures standing side by side, holding hands beneath a sky full of stars. "No matter the distance," the message said, "our hearts will find the way." Myra's eyes filled with tears of joy. She knew then that their connection was stronger than space or time. Months later, a new invitation arrived, an offer from the Sarati Council to visit Virelin again, to deepen the friendship between their worlds. Myra did not hesitate. She prepared for the journey with a heart full of hope. When she finally stepped onto Virelin again, the air was cool and filled with the scent of flowers and rain. The velvet tents glowed softly under the familiar twin moons. Talon was waiting, his eyes bright and warm. They met in the small tent where their journey had begun. Without a word, they took each other's hands, this time not as strangers, but as two souls who had traveled far to be together. The orb from Virelin's moth glowed between them, a symbol of the light they shared. Together, Myra and Talon walked beneath the stars, their steps slow and sure. The world around them was quiet, but inside, their hearts sang a powerful song, a song of hope, trust, and a love that grew stronger every day. Myra knew that no matter how different their worlds might be, their passion was a bridge that connected them forever. And under the velvet sky of Virelin, Two very different souls found a home in each other's hearts.